Hello, welcome to the Geeky Brummie Podcast. Yes, I'm back. They let me out the cupboard finally. Stuffed me in 2 weeks of being stuffed in that cupboard. 2 weeks. How are we all? It's your host, Mr. Ryan Parrish, and joining me today is Keith. Hello, Keith.
Hello,
Thank you very
everybody.
much for the guest hosting duties last time around.
You make
Leigh.
it look so easy.
Yes. Leigh, welcome back.
Hi.
And Shanice is joining us. Hello, Shanice. This is the first time on the podcast. We'll come back to you shortly. Before that, we'll go into our usual round of what we've been up to since the last recording. So let's kick us off with Keith. Keith, what have you been up to the last few weeks?
This just becomes more difficult each week when you just say, "What have you been up to?" And it's like, not an awful lot. I have been catching up with some comics. I've been catching up with a lot of the X-Men books. I'd fallen a little bit behind with the various X-Men books, of which I'm reading the main X-Men title, New Mutants and Excalibur. So I'm trying to catch up with that before the Hellfire Gala starts, which kind of I think pretty much almost on top of us now, which is quite good. And Simon Spurrier, whose work I really love, he did the Hellblazer comic, has just started writing a Way of X book featuring Kurt Wagner as the main character, Nightcrawler, which is pretty cool. And it's kind of about like faith, identity, and individuality in the X-Men universe now that they can pretty much resurrect everybody at any point. So death has no meaning in the X-Men universe at the moment.
I've lost my way with the X-Men comics a bit. Is Nightcrawler still Mystique's child in the comics, or have they gone with the movie timeline weirdness?
They don't mention it. They don't mention it now. Yeah. I think he's still Mystique's child in the.
Just give up on continuity and relationships.
Yeah, because
it's Marvel. They just press the reset button every 5 years anyway.
Yeah,
we don't talk about the Fox version of the X-Men really. I mean, apart from Hugh Jackman, the rest of it is.
I've heard rumors like he's in talks to come back, and it's like, no, old man, go away. You've done enough. You've had enough movies.
And then there's me, who the most I know about the X-Men movies is that the first two were written by Solid Snake. Which is true.
Yeah, that's a credit you don't forget.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't mind if Hugh Jackman came back only to just be in a Deadpool movie again, properly. You know, proper old man Wolverine versus Deadpool kind of multiverse type thing where Deadpool's already murdered everybody else in the Marvel universe. That would be cool. I'd do that.
I was going to say, but if we're going with continuity, at Logan, he's pretty much dead at the end of Logan.
That's in the future.
Well, depending on which version, which timeline are we going with this time?
Yeah. The Back to the Future timeline. That's the one we're in. That's good. And outside of comics, I've finished watching Kid Cosmic.
Right.
The Craig McCracken, who did Foster's Home for Imaginary Children cartoon. It's on Netflix. Superb, brilliant, fantastic animation, great soundtrack. Highly recommended if people are watching that. And then I started watching loads of other trashy movies that weren't Sound of Metal to cleanse my palate.
Really got it in for that movie.
I keep seeing reviews for it, and I keep thinking, did I just see it? Was it a knockoff version that was on Amazon? Was that the kind of like, was it the Asylum version that was on Amazon? That was just like not as good.
I think Riz Ahmed's peak is always going to be Four Lions, because that's a movie you can watch whenever. It's such a great film.
But he's pretty cool in Rogue One as well. That he's great in that. And that's the Riz Ahmed.
Port Gullet.
Yeah, and then I finally got around to rewatching Force Awakens as well recently, which is strange. It's like, it's okay.
I've heard they've done lots of work on the Disney Plus versions of the films. Like they've recolor graded, I think.
Rise of Skywalker. And they made a few other minor changes. Yeah.
A small animation called like Bad Batch or something. And it's integrating a small young Jedi child to...
Yeah.
Oh, God, what was happening with it again? I couldn't quite do with it because, like, as an adult now, I don't associate with kids. So when there is an animation with a kid lead, I'm just like, no, you're not my age. I can't associate.
It's quite interesting because it is just Jay Filoni basically saying, I want to do Clone Wars Season 8, and they said, no more Clone Wars, and he goes, right, I shall call Clone Wars Season 8 The Bad Batch, and just like put a tracing paper cover over the top. I think Billy D. Williams is earning more money out of The Bad Batch than he did out of the Clone Wars, though. That man that just like, he's got such a great job on that. He's playing 5 characters at exactly the same time. I don't know how he gets away with it.
I do love with the fact that at the end of it, because I watch all the credits, I'm not one of these like skip credits, skip intro type people.
There's no point pressing the skip intro. It's 2 seconds.
Yeah, but it's brilliant at watching the end where they have all the foreign language versions of the dubbed versions, and it's just brilliant because they still list like each individual character with the same actor's voice on it, so that they get like 5 credits at the end of each episode. It's brilliant.
I'm hoping he's getting 5 paychecks.
Yeah, I don't think that's happening.
Yeah, I thought he'd be playing Omega, but they've actually got a different voice actress for that, so I think that works quite well.
Yeah. Which I'd love the fact they say it in different ways. It's Omega. It's like, yeah, brilliant. Nobody really knows how to say that word, so let's canonize it. The fact that nobody knows how to say Omega.
Yeah, but yeah, we'll have to come back to The Bad Batch though, because I think it's been a good series. It's been a lot better than I was expecting it to be.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I dipped in and out. I think I just couldn't commit, unfortunately. It was like a bad relationship. We just weren't ready for each other. I walked away, they walked away. I was just like, I'm out. Good.
Has anybody been watching Solar Opposites on Disney Plus?
No.
Rick and Morty thing.
It's Justin Roiland animation about aliens who crash land on planet Earth and do stuff, which is cool. It's a little bit kind of substandard Rick and Morty, but there's a secondary plot where one of the aliens continually shrinks people and stick them in a wall. It's become a kind of post-apocalyptic society, and every so often they have like a wall-focused episode. And the last one I watched, I think it's the season finale for this particular second season, was just all based in the wall, and that's brilliant. That's just fantastic. It's like, forget all the rest. I'm really invested in this kind of like shrunken down post-apocalyptic human society, which is just great.
Is it a Frasier thing where the spin-off's greater than the actual show itself?
I think, yeah, the kind of B plot is better than the A plot.
But do you like the fact that they don't give you the whole like series for it? Like, is it nice that it blips into the idea of what this whole story could be? Kind of like the Love, Death and Robot thing. You start seeing what could be an amazing series, but it's like, actually, you just get this one little bit.
Yeah. Well, I didn't realise this last episode was going to be on the wall, because all the credits and titles was like, it was just another standard episode. And then it just starts and you just go, oh, great. This is not what I was expecting. It was really good. Great.
Sounds good. So lots of binge watching then over the last few weeks.
Yeah, I kind of started that conversation saying I ain't done nothing, and then it just seems like all I've done is lie around in a slothful state, reading comics and watching TV.
It's been like the last 12 months for most people, I think.
Like 12 years, man. It's just 12 years of sleeping.
Leigh.
Like close enough series. The people that did a regular show.
I tried that. I know the second series has just dropped on Netflix. I tried the first series, and it's kind of like, I'm slightly too old for it now. If that series had come out 5 years before, I think I'd have been the perfect age for that. But now, kind of like, I'm heading towards 40. It's kind of like that early 30s kind of thing is like a little too far away.
Oh, keep this up until season 2, because I struggled with season 1 as well. But season 2, thankfully, like, it perfectly nods at too many adult elements. Like, at some point, even within the first episode, the daughter's dealing Tabasco sauce like it's cocaine on the school playground. It's like, that is so simple. Elegancy in a plot. Yes.
Yeah. I think the Die Hard episode was like a gem from the first season, but I need to revisit it at some point. Leigh, what have you been up to the last few weeks?
Oh God. Again, like Keith, I always struggle with this every single week. And it also doesn't really help that most of the video games I've been playing have been for recording purposes, so that I can't really talk about what I've been playing because it reveals what videos are coming out. But I mean, I have been sort of still playing through Code Vein, like I talked about before. The anime Dark Souls with my vampire with the massive hat that constantly obscures her face in cutscenes. I think I'm at the final boss of that game So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, otherwise it's mostly been like reconfiguring everything I'm doing for my channel because the weekly schedule was not working out at all. As I was constantly rushing to get videos done, and just they can be better and not have me constantly stressed. So,
Yeah.
But
Still dipping your toe into Mass Effect.
occasionally when I'm not busy recording things. So
In having the love of a BioWare dialogue tree.
yeah, I should go. I mean, the video that I did put out on like my first impressions of Mass Effect, I did specifically go out my way to get the Shepard Rex exchange just to put it in the video because I know that it's such a meme.
Yeah. You're such a great Shepard, Rex. Shepard. I should go.
But yeah, it's been kind of just that kind of fortnight, really. Not a lot really going.
Lots of organisation in the background.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you do have a Discord now, don't you, for your YouTube channel? I
do have Discord now, yes. It's still quite quiet in there, but it's there. It exists.
Yeah, I'll drop the link into the show chat description. So if you do want to go and join Leigh's Discord and talk to him about video games, it's there for your chatting pleasure. And on to you, Shanice, then. What have you been up to the last few weeks? Any particular geeky highlights?
Oh God, I've been a terrible soul in not touching into like my favourite little elements of the nerdy world. I've rekindled my love for anime only just like the last couple of weeks, but it's hard because I'm a little purist in the sense of as long as it is sketchy and sugary. There we go, change that word, lovely. Sketchy and sugary, I'm just instantly obsessed with it. It's really hard for me to watch new anime, like even like something simple like My Hero Academia. Brilliant series, really simple. It's not as slow paced as like Demon Slayer. Demon Slayer is fantastic visually, like hugely visually satisfying. My problems with the pacing of it. It's got that Dragon Ball Z problem. It takes 9 episodes for 4 minutes to pass, and you're just like, dude, the monster's towards you for what it feels like 5 toilet breaks.
Well, like 5 episodes of everyone just powering up.
Oh.
Well, the thing with Dragon Ball Z that always got me was it's a 20-minute episode. You'd have 7 minutes of which was the last episode, slightly condensed. 7 minutes of what's coming up in the next episode, and then the remaining 6 minutes was them just powering up or just saying how they're going to punch somebody. Or
next episode. Oh.
Yeah.
40 Demon Slayer slightly has that problem. There is progression, but also you're recapping the last like 7 minutes that you've just watched, and you're like, Japan, I know this. I know what just happened 6 minutes ago. Tell me what's in the next 10 minutes, and we'll be really happy with each other.
So there was a Reddit for Mythbusters called Smiths, and it's basically like they took the Mythbusters and took away all the padding of the episode. So you got like all the Mythbusters things in like 10 minutes. Somebody needs to do that with the entirety of the Dragon Ball saga, and you'd probably end up with like 3 hours of footage for the entirety of one season of Dragon Ball.
It'd be a gold nugget. That's a genius idea. Absolutely.
Yeah.
No one wants the extended Dragon Ball Z. Everyone wants the.
Yeah, just the Dragon Ball Z but shortened version. Yeah, that'd be great.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I've just kind of been like scrolling through the animes, like kind of like going back over old ones I used to watch. Like what was I watching the other day? It was a right little diamond that I was right excited to get someone to watch. High School of the Dead. It's simple, it's simplistic, it's one of the really well-known zombie animes, and it just has so much fan service to it. Like, as a woman, I can only appreciate how the animators of that studio assume our bodies jiggle. Like, discussing like, I didn't know we moved like that. Like, that's fantastic. I'm waiting for that moment to happen. But
sounds like they know the Dead or Alive creators quite well.
Like, it's just brilliant. As long as something's gorging its face out of something else, I'm happy. Like, this was manga called like Fort of Apocalypse or something. I think it's called Fort of Apocalypse, and it's about how a young lad goes into juvie with other juvie fellas, and then a zombie apocalypse outbreak happens outside the walls of the prison, how they try to contain themselves from getting infected, and how they're eventually going to have to just leave the prison. it's brilliant because it has an ending you don't expect. Because with most zombie-based things, they'll just go, "Oh, it's just a virus created by the government." This is not a virus created by the government. Expect something with that one.
It's not the usual Resident Evil cop-out of, oh, evil corporation. Spray, 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 spray.
No evil corporation in sight apart from the government just trying to police, even though they have no control over something that they can't handle. It's fine.
Sounds really cool. Might have to check that out.
Yeah, so some really good manga. Because I think that one's from like 7-8 years ago. Now, there was a really good spike of like really freak anime manga. There was a manga called Fuan no Tane, and that's just short stories, really in the similar style of like Jinjo Ito, who's the mangaka, the sort of really well-known horror manga writer. But this manga is, once again, it's just short stories, but really concerning, nasty visual effects. Once again, like 10 years ago. I'll send this all to you guys. You're big read.
Yeah, and now Leigh's a big Junji Ito fan.
Mm-hmm.
This hole is made for me.
Yeah. It's a big part of why I got into World of Horror last year, just because it is like someone just ripping off the Junji Ito style and making an RPG out of it. So.
Oh, that sounds perfect.
Yeah.
Like, you just need more disgusting visuals like that. That's I always focus my work. I think about people like him when I make these nasty little images. That you just got to think about like a girl's face swelling into a face, and you're like, why didn't I think of that? Oh, it was not there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Been pretty slow week for me. Just anime and reflecting on how much I can watch more anime. Yeah.
So how about you, Ryan? You've had a bit of extra time.
So mainly been Mass Effect Legendary Edition, which is just Mass Effect with a bit of spit and polish thrown on the top of it. Reliving my youth from back in those 2007 halcyon days when it first came out. But I can't believe how long it is since the first Mass Effect came out. And at the same time, I can't believe how much they've improved, yet the interface is still so damn clunky in the game. Because
they not fix those menus.
They fixed like the combat and they fixed the HUD, so it's much better. But as soon as you go into that,
the Mako as well.
Well, yeah, but you can have it in classic, and everybody has fun in the Mako. It's just giant bouncy castle of a vehicle. But the inventory system is still awful. Just awful. I really hate it. Otherwise, Viv and I have been watching the comedy series Man Down. So if you're a fan of Taskmaster and you've never watched that, it's Greg Davis's, basically his little comedy sitcom series, and it's absolutely fantastic. The reason we started watching it is because Mike from series 11 of Taskmaster is one of the main characters in it, so we thought we'd go back and watch it and just see how good it was. And it has the best casting for season 1, which is Rick Mail as Greg Davis's dad. And unfortunately, he passed away during the series, so he gets replaced by Stephanie Cole from season 2 onwards. But you couldn't pair them up any better. I mean, Greg Davis always said he was like a stretch Rick Mail to start off with his stand-up. But it's just like every episode starts off normally, and then just a series of incidents happen, which puts into the surreal by the end of each episode. And it's one of those hidden gem kind of comedies. I don't think it found its audience the first time around, so I really do recommend you go and watch that if you've not seen it. The other thing I've started to do, and I'm massively behind on this, is started on the Berserk manga, because I heard about the passing, unfortunately, of Kentaro Miura. At the age of 54, I think he passed away. He's put a studio in place because he knew he wasn't very well at all to carry on and finish the Berserk story off. But it's one of those enduring mangas that I've never got around to starting because it has so many chapters to get through. And it's like his artwork is super detailed. So it's very early days. Started to watch that. Started to watch Love, Death and Robots as well for season 2. I watched the first episode, which basically has what looks like the big head mini Titans from Attack on Titan running around trying to defeat a vacuum cleaner. That's all you need to know about the first episode. It's back on form for Love, Death and Robots.
I didn't even know there was a second season. So
yeah, it's amazing.
Gonna have to watch it.
Yeah.
It's one called Snow, I think, and just like it's just about. Oh, can't say anything. With spoiler. How can you spoil it with content?
Yeah. I mean, if you have watched any of season 1, it's definitely worth dropping your feedback in season 2.
I didn't do the first season.
I think still my ultimate favourite one from the first season is when the yogurt took over, which didn't get as much praise as the other one, but it's just narrated so well. And it is like one of my favourite just little aside stories about having a sentient yogurt in charge of the entire world. And it still makes sense to this day that you can imagine that happening.
I mean, it was done as well as like it reminded me a lot of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy intros and the narratives that would come in between each bit as the guide is explained.
Yeah.
So like it's similar to that. It's just like, oh, we actually realise that you're complete rubbish and we need to get rid of all of you.
But yeah, definitely worth checking out. Catching up on Castlevania on Netflix as well. It's been like a Netflix heavy binge because I'm still midway through season 2, but I know season 3's dropped on Netflix, so I need to get through that. It's still weird having Richard Armitage's voice. So I'm so used to him like in Lord of the Rings and like having him as Simon Belmont, and then going to watch something like Space Sweepers when he turned up in the bad guy in that.
Mm-hmm. That was distracting.
It's still very distracting when you have Simon Belmont in charge of a space station.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely worth watching. So that's my recommendations: Man Down and Love, Death and Robots. We're going to go into our comics of the week from Keith, but after that we'll be back and we'll be probing Shanice's geeky credentials. So I'm giving you a bit more information about why she's joining the crew. But we'll be back shortly.
What's happening to you these days? Having lots of fun? Believe me, I know some folks that are in for some fun.
Take a minute. See what's in it.
But you can see how dangerous this could be.
But first, we're going to have a little fun tonight, folks.
It's time for the Geeky Brummie Podcast.
And now it's time to take a look at some of the comics out now and coming soon in the Geeky Brummie pull list. Out now, and our previous comic of the week is Red Room #1 from Fantagraphic Books, written and illustrated by Ed Piskor. In this issue, from the creator of Hip Hop Family Tree and X-Men Grand Design, comes this all-new monthly comic book series with a specially priced self-contained double-sized debut issue. Red Room is a cyberpunk outlaw splatterpunk masterpiece. Aided by the anonymous dark web and nearly untraceable cryptocurrency, there has emerged a subculture of criminals who live stream and patronize webcam murders for entertainment. But who are the murderers? Who are the victims? And how do we stop it? Also out now from Marvel is Way of X #2, written by Simon Spurrier with art by Bob Quinn. In this issue, Let Us Pray. A villain revealed, the dark force hiding within Krakoa begins to show its true form. The answers are hidden within the mindscape, Kurtz, and others. One of the most dangerous mutants is reborn. Also from Marvel, we have New Mutants #18, written by Vita Alia with art by Rob Rees. In this issue, Homecoming. Looking for love in all the wrong places, the New Mutants' path seems simple. Train, guide, and mentor the youth. Sure, they didn't ask for the job, but they've been figuring it out together, right? How wrong could it go? The New Mutants are about to find out. Also out now is X-Men #20, written by Jonathan Hickman with art by Francesca Mobley. In this issue, Lost Love, System Online, Processing. And check out that magnificent Nimrod cover. Also out now over at DC Comics, we have Strange Adventures #10, written by Tom King, with art by Mitch Gerards and Evan Shanna. This is Chapter 10, You Rule Supreme. Once upon a time on Rann, Adam Strange made a deal with his neighbours and foes to take a stand against the invading Pits. Now, on Earth, he's trying to do the same thing to get all the heroes to rise as one and keep the Marauders from doing to his home planet what they already did to his adopted one. But the original deal was a devil's bargain, and Alana Strange has received a mysterious letter that may tell her more than she wants to know. If she wants to keep her husband safe, it's time for her to go on the offensive. Also out now, and our current comic of the week is Shadowman #2 from Valiant, written by Cullen Bunn with art by John Davis Hunt. In this issue, the bone-chilling team of Cullen Bunn and John Davis Hunt bring forth a terrifying tale in this can't-miss new chapter of Valiant's hit horror series. The hellscape known as Deadside has pried open a doorway to Earth in Enoch, Arizona, and our only chance at survival against the awoken desert beasts is Shadowman. You can find out about other great comics released each week in our On the Radar feature on Wednesdays through our Twitter feed and on our website. And until then, enjoy reading.
So, Shanice, welcome to the Geeky Brummie Collective. How are you?
Pretty dandy, right? Pretty dandy. I'm very excited, very nervous, of course.
Yeah, so as it's your first episode, we thought we'd ease you into the audience with a few questions of what does geek mean to you and a few things like that. So I suppose that's the first question. Then, what does geek mean to you as a kind of thing?
Ooh, geek to me are those subjects that I enjoyed as a child that everyone else said I was weird for, but now suddenly love themselves. That's what geek is. It's just it's enjoying the sort of like tiny detail within a story or something, I guess. Like, so for me, it goes more for Japanese culture with manga. Like, it's not seen as the most popular thing, but there's always an integral story. Like, there'll be a certain aspect or a character I can relate to as the external to society. And it's the same for every other person. Keith has obviously his comics. Lee's got his gaming. Brian, you have all of the above.
General specialist is the way I would say it. It's like general geekiness just across the spectrum. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, just me, it's always been like manga and anime and just the odd thing that 4chan would throw at me as a young child trying to find my personality. Is it really?
Yeah, so what kind of your interests outside of geekdom or inside of geekdom? I mean, you mentioned anime quite a lot. Do you have other kind of geeky interests that you delve into?
Oh, I'd like to say, personally for me, it's the illustrative side of it. It's character design. Keith and I have spoken about this before, but the whole element of like how character designs are made. Like only earlier on yesterday, we were watching how the TMNT series developed and how it went from completely amazing to, God, this is so horrific. How do I burn my eyes out to trying to salvage something with Megan Fox and failed. It's just like, yeah, it's just the design sides of it. So like my favorite people used to be mangakas back in the day, but as I've kind of gotten older, I've noticed a lot of Western artists. So we was saying before, like Karl Kapinski, this man has such a high comprehension of the human form. He can draw you better than you're already drawn out now. You know what his hands look like when he looks at your face. It's crazy. But he's really good at sort of like meshing that Western and Eastern sort of like styles together. Him and that Kim Jong-gi guy. But like these are people like I'll follow. I'll never try to attempt to be their skill levels, but they'll always kind of help encourage me to show that I can direct myself in my skill sets. So I'm a natural doodler in the sense of since I was a child, as soon as I wasn't listening in class, I was picking up a pen and drawing some scanty little black illustration to scare my teacher off at the end and getting told that my mum has to come in because we have to have a talk because she did a creepy eye with an apple coming out of it. The tankier it looked or the more roughly it was drawn, the more I appreciated it. I will always encourage people to doodle. Like, I will always encourage people to just design something for the sake of designing it with no intent of showing off to anyone else but enjoying it themselves. And I think that is a very healthy mentality. Because you just push out your own little thoughts and you're just like, oh, that dude's weird. I want him to be my best friend suddenly. And then that's how like some of our favourite characters have come about just from a random doodle. Like, what was it? Like the Space Invader characters are just like random little square blocks that some guy in Japan like wanted to doodle down. You know, the Doom games, like the Doom games, for example, you've got these Doom games, and like they look terrible. The initial sheets of like design papers, you've just got this little on a lined piece of paper, some obvious standard pen they picked up, doodled out this right little daft thing in a triangular form, gave it a couple of arms, put a mouth like down horizontally. Suddenly one of the biggest game series that ever developed, like just from little doodles. So I will always encourage doodling without a sense of like showing your skill sets through. If you just want to doodle, you might accidentally create this amazing world for somebody else in the future. So like I'm just pro little design characters now. They don't have to make sense. It's cool.
Yeah, I remember a story reading about Shigeru Miyamoto when he was designing Mario, and it was too small to put a mouth on. So that's why Mario has a moustache, because it was the only way he could like draw out beneath the nose to put something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, see, it's just such a simple thing. Like, but like that dude's iconic now. There is literally a whole amusement park dedicated to him.
Yeah.
Yoshi buggers. Oh, fantastic.
It's just Mario just prints money for Nintendo now. It's, just like, it's like Mario, Zelda, and that's pretty much the main
Pokemon.
tune. Oh, Pokemon. Yeah, Pokemon. They only,
Pokemon
they
is
only
their
own a
cash
third of Pokemon League, officially. Only a third of Pokemon.
It's a big third, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Tally it up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is that something to do, Ryan? Like, have a word with Nintendo to see if they can create their own currency and see if it could be more powerful than the sterling? Like,
Yeah.
something over.
I'm surprised they've not started doing NFTs, to be honest, because they've jumped on any other bandwagon in the past.
Well, I mean, Nintendo are like 10 years behind when it comes to anything internet related, so that's probably why. We'll hear about it in 2030. It's like, oh, Nintendo are doing NFTs, at which point the entire market has already crashed.
But I know you've got a bit of a history in fine art, Shanice. I know that was your degree subject. So do you think that kind of like drew you to manga more and then like you developed from that into your fine art, or is it more of a vice versa kind of situation?
Well, fine art was actually a subject that I tried to aim for because I was trying to become more metaphorical. It's essentially, I was trying to add a lot more depth to whatever drawings, because I would draw things and people would say like, oh, you know, they look cool, they look a bit weird. And I was like, yes, that's exactly how I want to respond. But then as I got older, I was like, oh, I can't just draw weird little things. I have to draw weird little things with a meaning because I'm an adult and you shoot. So I did actually go from illustration to fine art. And with fine art, there isn't, with contemporary fine art, there's not a focus on, how to explain, like 2D illustrating. I guess you can do it, but it's that's just considered the starting point to creating like really like profound sort of images. So once again, I think we were trying to say before, like fine art now is painting a pair of glasses blue, putting them in the corner and praying someone thinks it looks wicked. Like that's fine art now. Well, there are cool guys who've done some really cool things. Like there's the guy John, I can never remember his name, the guy who did the 3 definitions of a chair with the physical object of a chair on a wall, the definition of a chair written down onto it, and a drawing of a chair. And it said, and he explains which one is the most definitive explanation of what a chair. What is the truest form? Is it the chair itself, the explanation of the chair, or the drawing of the chair, which is a representation of what it can truly be in any angle? So it's like that's cool. It's genius. They just like, the little art nerd in me is just like, oh, get me shaky. But I think I'm just more of an illustrator. I think I just want to draw like a cool guy with his eyes being pulled out with his fingers popped onto him, kind of like in the same thing as
yeah. So you mentioned before that you're really into anime and manga. So and you're inspired by the art of some kind of mangakas. So I'm massively out of date with my anime. I mean, I stopped watching it about 10 years ago. So I was watching stuff like Trigun, Gungrave, Naruto, the Bleach, the typical boy animes, and then a bit of stuff like Pat Labor and a few other bits like that. So I'm massively out of date. So what kind of animes would you recommend now?
See, it depends what you're into. If you're into the gory, nasty, then yeah, you're looking at. It depends whether you're going to go from anime or manga, because people are just, there's so much more manga than there is anime. So I will try to integrally push manga more. But for anime's sake, like if you're into the sort of like slightly more gorier element, yeah, you'd be looking at things like High School of the Dead. You're looking at like Angel Egg, I guess. Angel Egg's part of an old collection of animes back in like the 80s, where it was around these sort of like Akira period where like everything's a bit more skanky and sort of messed up. If you're looking for something a bit more cutesy or like sort of sincere with sort of like philosophical values, you're looking at things like Beastar. Beastar's like a CGI element anime now, which is kind of like half frowned upon by people, because it's like,
yeah, I know there's a big controversy when Attack on Titan swapped from having drawn Titans to 3D Titans.
Yeah. Even that, like it divides anime fans completely. But some of it truly like really works. There's a sci-fi anime that I saw like a year ago, Inuyashiki, The Last Hero, which is a fantastic. I'm not pro CGI. I won't deny my nose is pretty high up. I'm a snoop. But this shocked me something rotten. I was there like, oh my god, look, it's not hand drawn. Oh no, this is gonna be pretty. And then as the story completely engrossed me, I was like, they could have only done this in CGI. They could have only done this. Beautiful. Inuyashiki is a fantastic CGI anime. It's the only way to. If you don't like CGI, you need to watch this anime so you like anime CGI, essentially. It will make you like it. It's an old dude who is completely down on his luck. His family just don't respect him. That sort of standard role, old working class Japanese man, gets involved in a scenario which allows him an ability to be someone helpful and just to really try and fight in these really cool like mecha style ways with his physical body being restructured. And you're just like, that's awesome. I want to be that old man. I love that old man. I want to be the old man. So yeah, it's just really good. It's really good.
Yeah, because I mean, some of the more modern stuff I've watched is like One Punch and Ghost in the Shell Arise, which is kind of Ghost in the Shell standalone complex again, because they never could seem to settle with that thing of, we'll just remake it again. It seems to be production IG strategy for any time they're a bit short on cash, so I would just release something Ghost in the Shell related. But do you think it's having a big effect on Western animation? I mean, we've had stuff like Avatar: The Last Airbender, Legend of Korra, which is kind of seen as a Western anime. Do you think that's going to bleed more across?
Oh, it's bleeding across now. Like, if I remember correctly, you guys did speak about Mitchells versus Monsters last week, I believe. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't sound like from looking at it, you won't be like, oh, there's an anime influence there. But even like integrally, like, the types of people that would have worked on anime series would have worked on that Mitchells versus the Monsters film. And there's little things where, like, even mannerisms in Western culture films are being affected. Like that sort of like cutesy appreciation of plushies. Like, what's going to be in my bedroom has already been affected by what's already been in anime. And like, yeah, it's made a huge difference. I can't for the life of me put my finger on it about any current Western animated series that really like shouts out, apart from Castlevania, like we're saying, because that's a perfect mixture of Western and Asian. It's got the Western mythology, but also the Asian sort of visual aesthetics mixed in with some Western comic style.
Yeah, it reminds me of the 80s and 90s period where Japanese and French animation kind of merged over quite a lot, and you got series like Ulysses 31 out of it, which was kind of like, and Mysterious Cities of Gold, which is kind of like that half French, half Japanese kind of blend to it. But yeah.
The thing I find interesting about Castlevania, though, from that perspective, is the fact that Castlevania itself as a game series is like Japanese developers looking at Western stuff, looking at Dracula and everything around that, and then putting their spin on it. And now with the cartoon, it's gone the other way, where they've looked at this Japanese game series, but also taken a lot of inspiration from anime, but it's all made in the West. So it's like, it's kind of gone full circle almost.
Yeah, it's just like a perfect mix of both worlds.
Yeah.
Because there's that, isn't there that Batman Ninja that came out a wee while ago? There was Batman Ninja, it was a CGI where the Joker's more of like a Jester style element, but once again, it's got that really extreme, like, expressive style that anime has. Oh God!
Yeah, it was. I think it was an all Japanese team that made it, and basically, and then just used the characters in. I think it was like Shogun era setting.
Yeah, feudal Japan.
Yeah.
There's been a couple of previous attempts with tie-ins to films. I think the Animatrix was one of the first ones that was taking kind of Western storytelling but using kind of Japanese studios. Mm-hmm. And then out of the Christopher Nolan Batmans, the best thing to come out of that was the Gotham Knights sets of anime that they did in a similar fashion to the Animatrix, where it was kind of Western storytellers, Western writers, but married to that kind of anime aesthetic, which worked really well. And I think that's how kind of Batman Ninja. But again, things like Teen Titans and stuff has elements of those kind of more kid-friendly anime series. The first series of that, even using the kind of like Japanese style title music, which is great. which is kind of cool. But I was wondering when in terms of manga, because I'm kind of a bit more au fait with manga than the anime. I've seen a few animes, but not many. And when I was a kid, kind of basically it was Akira through Epic and Lone Wolf and Cub. And now, you saw a few things like Bleach creeping into comic stores, but now it's kind of like, a high proportion of the comics that are sold at somewhere like Worlds Apart is manga titles. It's a big part of their comics buying audience now, rather than kind of Western comics. Manga titles seem to be a big thing, and it's like, is there anything specifically that's happened in the last 20 years that you think has made manga that much more accessible and attracted that audience? It's obviously a younger, newer audience that are coming to the manga titles than kind of the old guys buying Batman comics.
I guess no, like I can't obviously speak for why it's happened. I've not particularly looked into it, but like I guess because it's easier to because once again you've got to license something for it to come over to England anyway. So you've got to make that accessible for it to be licensed, because there wasn't that exposure with anime. Like thank God for things like Akira and like Naruto. All of this did expose us at a young age. Now all those people that work for these companies, and I'm assuming they're just trying really hard to bring over sort of elements of manga. Like oh god, it's a really hard one to answer because I don't know.
I can't help but feel like Pokemon's partly responsible as well, because of how big the anime was, as well as the game. And everyone kind of grew up with that, and then it's just as a result of the success of that, it's brought other things with it. So
yeah,
I think it's endemic in how kind of European and Japanese comics work, that there is comics for everybody. It's not just superheroes. It's very rare that you get superhero manga. It's teen drama or witches or horror or kitchen sink type stuff. And I think that's one of the things that's latched onto a particularly in a modern audience. It's like it's not just guys in spandex. There's something, there's the kind of games related stuff. There's the kind of it's just a wealth of different styles and comics for all kinds of people as well. I think that's one of the things that kind of has helped manga become such a big force in the West, really, particularly in the UK. That it is, there's comics for all kinds, everybody.
Yeah. Perspective, like I think you've got things like Oyasumi Punpun, which is the main protagonist is shaped like a crudely drawn bird, and that's just his head or like his main body. He's a crudely drawn bird, but every other character around him is these overly deep, and that's just a standard slice of life manga with that sort of like psychological trauma sort of thrown in just to make sure we all cry.
Yeah.
And then you got things like I've got some mangas at the moment. One of the most recent ones I started was A Man with a Cat, and it's just all from the perspective of this really ugly fat cat who thought he was going to be truly loved. This beautiful gentleman comes in and just starts to love him. It's just about how appreciative he is of his owner. That's it. That's the manga. It's from a fat, ugly, cute cat's perspective who just wants to be loved. Aren't we all just a little fat cat on the inside that wants to be loved by a gentleman?
Yeah. So your entry in, as you mentioned earlier, was Ghibli, and do you like still have a soft spot for Ghibli nowadays? Is it kind of it's the Japanese Disney at the end of the day, isn't it? And it's
yeah. And who loves anime loves Ghibli. I've never seen a comment on Reddit or 4chan or Anime Planet that disregarded or even judged Ghibli prior to Goro Miyazaki, unfortunately.
He tries his best.
He does. What is with this new film that has come out? It's something to do with a witch, I think, and it's the wrong kind of CGI.
Well, that is it. When you were talking about CGI, I will say that when I saw the trailer for that movie, I did have this just instant revulsion to it. Like, this isn't a Ghibli movie.
How dare you touch Ghibli? Yes. How dare you sully Ghibli's good name with CGI? Well, Hayao Miyazaki. It's like having a wrestler. He always comes out of retirement for one more film. It's like, that's it, I'm done.
Okay, no, guys, this is totally my last film now. It's like
Yeah.
Miyazaki, this is the 10th time this has been your last film.
Yeah, I love the fact that Your Name, which is a film which I loved and went to watch it at the Mockingbird Cinema with my niece and my wife a long while ago, and I love it that caused Hayao Miyazaki to come out of retirement because it earned more money than Spirited Away, and he was like, "Well, that can't stand." Do you kind of like that kind of cinematic anime as well?
You can't deny that he's one of the best. It's him, Anano. Oh my god, my brain's turned off.
Mm-hmm.
The guy who did The Girl Who Leapt Through Time and Summer Wars and stuff, like they're just completely different people, aren't they? Like, yeah, you've got Hayao Miyazaki and his all production team of these fantasy-heavy, beautifully constructed worlds we can only pray to God truly exist in alternative dimension. Mm-hmm. And then you've got things that are just like more sort of like melancholy sort of perspectives on life that you can relate to now. And that is the guy who did things like Summer Wars, Girl Who Leapt Through Time, and then the guy, the production company of Tokyo Godfathers and Paprika, Millennium Actress. Those are
Perfect Blue, yeah.
Yeah,
there's Perfect Blue, which was just remade as Black Swan in the US, and it's like you're never going to deny that film is not just a remake of Perfect Blue.
Once again, Ghibli did just essentially redo Little Mermaid and The Borrowers, but they did such a smashing job. We just won't talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What was it? They also did what was it like? Disney did. They ripped off like an anime for Lion King. It was like called like The White Lion, but like. Disney still like everyone's just seeing the same idea. It's just the same idea circulating, but it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, it was. I think originally that was Hamlet anyway, so I think it's been a story told many times and recycled. Yeah,
it's Hamlet through an anime filter and then some lion slapped on top.
Yeah. So, Desert Island Dissolve. If you had one anime and one manga you could take away to a desert island, which would they be?
Oh, that's cool. So you got to think about length of the manga. Like, how long is it going to entertain you? How many times can you cool, bad, Ryan, bad. I'd have to say, in all honesty, just because of how many times I've watched it and like how many times I can enjoy the soundtrack. It's not the best anime, but my god, it hits both sides of my male and female mentalities. Vision of Escaflowne is probably the romance mecha. Gundam is lovely, whatever. Gundam can be wherever you want. It will never be as good as Vision of Escaflowne, just because Vision of Escaflowne made sure it stayed to a size it proportionally understandable. Vision of Escaflowne mixes between mecha, robots, romance, and the sort of fantasy of like tarot card reading, the sort of the paranormal world elements. A girl is transported from Earth to Gaia, and like it's just about how she integrates with these people that get dragon hearts and put them into robots, dragon robots, and just robots in general to control them. And you're like, what's wrong with this? It's fantastic. And it's part of that 70s 80s era where the noses kind of went halfway across the room, but yet nobody hit anyone else's head. Like beautiful anime style, all of it works. The soundtrack's kind of beautiful. You have to watch it subbed. Dubbed is just going to destroy it. Unfortunately, most animes in the 80s did that, but it's fantastic. Best anime, top tier, 10 out of 10. We'll watch again on an island. Manga wise, I'd have to go for a new one just because I'm so obsessed with the mangaka. It's the mangaka's called like Ari Iri, and she did something called Ran in the Grey Sky, and it's just a simple plot line, but she's just got such a high level comprehension on these beautiful scene sets of voluptuous women and sort of like beautiful background images that work. And it tends to be fantasy based with her, but each story is just so integrally wholesome that you can't help but just fall in love with it. Ari Iri, huge mangaka, would massively suggest her. And the manga, I've just finished it off. They've just finished translating. I read this manga 5 years ago. They just licensed it. Of course, I bought all of them. World, top tier. Will become.
And here was me thinking One Piece, because you could probably build a boat out of manga around One Piece.
Sorry, you could rant there.
No, that's really good recommendation. Thank you very much. Look forward to hearing more from you soon. following on from last week, where these fine gentlemen and Matt selected their reading choices for you, we thought we'd do some musical choices. It's been a while since we picked some music. We thought we'd each treat to two of our albums, which we revisit quite a lot and we think should be shared with a wider audience. So I'm going to go with Leigh first for his album choices and what he thinks he's going to bring to the table.
Okay, so I feel like this choice, because like I rarely listen to actual albums anymore. Like it's like I'm more like, let's throw everything on a playlist and just have chaos. But like it was difficult, so I basically just kind of picked some stuff at random that I think kind of deserve a little bit more attention, I think. And so one that sort of I've always liked for years is The Dark Third by Pure Reason Revolution, which is a really, really good sort of prog-ish rock album. I'd say prog-ish because it doesn't really like experiment with weird time signatures and stuff, but it is like the whole album is kind of sci-fi-ish, but also I think it's all about dreams, because I think that's kind of what the title is getting at. It's the dark third because you spend a third of your life asleep, and it's like referring to that dark third of the day when you're asleep. And so it's all about dreams, and it's got titles like The Bright Ambassadors of Morning and Bullets Domine and The Tinekin, and He Tried to Show Them Magic, and it's all just like this big bombastic ridiculous rock music. And
is this like your D&D session background music? Is this what you're going for here?
No, it is not. I don't even think this would work as like D&D. It's too like in your face with it, because it is so like, especially like The Bright Ambassadors of Morning, because that track is like 12 minutes long. And it just goes all over the place with these weird sci-fi noises. Bits of it really do remind me of the War of the Worlds Jeff Wayne thing from the 70s, which is another one of those albums from like my childhood that I was kind of raised on, that I have very fond memories of. And there are definitely, you can kind of feel elements of that coming in a little bit, especially with like some of the backing vocals are very similar to the way that like you'd hear the vocals in The Eve of the War, for instance. And yeah, it's very, very sci-fi, very weird, but just always a compelling listen every time I put it on.
Cool.
It's looking like the heavy metal film. So you've just kind of got this cool psychedelic side in the background with the visual aesthetics of heavy metal. Mm-hmm. That illustrative thing with that.
Yeah, I think, but like, sadly, there isn't like a visual element to go with this album, unfortunately. But it would definitely, I think it would work quite well with one, but they just have never gone for it. I think because they are quite a small band. I think that they did break up for a while, but they did, I think, came back last year after just many years of just not doing anything. They were just like, no, we I think it was like the two lead people just decided we're going to just come back as just a duo now, and we're going to continue the project. But I haven't actually listened to the new album in full yet, but that one was the debut, and it was definitely interesting there.
Cool. And do you have a second choice, or just go with the one?
My second choice, I decided to go for, I decided to sort of, in terms of like thinking about like music that I think people should listen to more of, like there's a bunch of Japanese artists that I really like, and the one album I thought would be that I really, really like is The One by Shinichi Osawa, and he's like a kind of techno producer in Japan, and this album is just like song after song after song of just really great like house music. There's a cover of Star Guitar by the Chemical Brothers on there, but it's like a lot heavier on the guitars. And it's a lot faster, but it's also got like Au revoir Simone doing the vocals on it as well, like, which is really weird that he keeps bringing in all these Western vocalists from out of nowhere. But like, there's just a lot of really kind of heavy synths, and it's kind of almost like a rock album, but it's all a house album, and it's really just interesting to listen to. And it's one of those where I don't think there's a single track on here that I dislike. And it's just it's kind of, sometimes with a lot of electronic acts, you will get like albums where half the album's really, really good. The rest of it's like we're messing around with a synthesizer and we haven't really got a plan here. But this is brilliantly constructed all the way through. So I'd recommend that, and it is available on a lot of streaming platforms and things. Although my copy came from Japan when I was in there.
Lovely. That sounds really two interesting and diverse listens there.
Mm-hmm.
Really good stuff. Shanice, do you want to have your 2 album selection? I know you wrote down about 20, but it'd be really cool and limit you to 2.
Oh, well, the world just made a beautiful sounds, man. How do you just pick 2? No, I thought that was really cool though. Like that's such a tiny little thing. Like it's so rare that you can listen to a whole album and not dislike a single song. So when you said that, I was like, that is so cool.
Yeah.
For me, like I struggled because obviously we were talking about bands that we like grown up listened to, but for me, I think I didn't listen to albums as a child. I think I've started more so listening to whole albums now. So the closest to that would have been like Jamiroquai back in the day because of like family influences. But for me personally, finding an album and being like, this is hot sauce in a disc. There's a band called the Front Bottoms. They're like post-rock emo bands from, I'd like to say Canada, but I'm obviously going to be wrong with that one. So I didn't say Canada. But the Front Bottoms kind of, it's emo post-rock punk music. It's that sort of like distorted vocal sound, which I really appreciate in modern musicians at the moment. The album's called like The Talon of the Hawks, and it has a song in it called Twinsized Mattress with the beginning line of, this is for the lions living in the, this is for the lions living in the watery broke down frames of my friends' bodies. And it's like, oh, yeah. Sorry, I made some noises there, but that song, oh, fantastic. It's lyrically clever, and that's why I always appreciate it. If something has like fluidity in the sound, but almost that like sounds continuously poetic without going, baby, I miss you. I'm so sad for missing you. I'm just like, I heard that. This is clever. It's really, like the whole album's written out clever. Like there's a song called Au revoir in which it's a discussion about how a man finds his ex-partner stupid, essentially. She was like, he's like, au revoir, I bet you don't even know what that means. And she's like, I know that it's French, I know what it means. And like, it's a conversation in a song about how they just don't like each other, and you're like, well done, Front Bottoms, I like you. But yeah, Front Bottoms, Talon of the Hawks. It's cool, man. It's got a good vibe to it. It's got a really good vibe. Wicked metaphorical lyrics, really like it visually expressive. Mainly acoustic guitar mixed in with like a whole back band or like just an electric guitar on its own, and a guy with a sort of like almost off tempo, chalky voice that kind of breaks away. That's my album number 1. Number 2 would have to be, there is this new band at the moment called Michael Cera Palin, which is all Michael Cera Palin. Let's merge them together to make one awesome post-rock emo band. Again, if I remember correctly. And they have an album called I Don't Know How to Explain It. And once again, it's around the same vibe as Front Bottoms, but they just do it with a much more like detrimentally daunting sound, kind of like modern baseball. Modern baseball are really like quite daunting for you. So like How You're Forever Gonna Be Alone, but let's just make it seem lighthearted because we're an indie film. It's but Michael Cera Palin, they covered If It Makes You Happy by what's her name again? If It Makes You Happy. Come on, someone. That lad.
You know who it is? Sheryl Crow.
Oh god, yeah. Okay. It's ironic how we all forgot that.
That's not Alanis Morissette.
It's close enough.
They covered that song and they do such a brilliant job of it. I listened to it and I was like, I know I've heard this song, and I could not. It only until it popped up on my YouTube as a suggestion, I was like, oh my god, they've done such a good. They've stolen it in my sense, and that's sort of the same way with 9 Inch Nails, Hurt.
Yeah,
and
it's the superior version, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think so. Michael Cera Palin, what a huge band. What a huge little band.
Cool. Brilliant. I look forward to listening to those. Keith, what have you come up with?
So I haven't gone with the traditional things that I might have gone with.
About the wombats.
No, that I'm not. Shush, wait. Bide your time. Because obviously, having lived through the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000, and 2010s, I could have picked anything from there. And there are albums in amongst there that are quintessentially part and parcel of what made me the person that I am. But what I decided to do is pick records that have come out in the last 10 years by newer bands, because new music is vitally important to me, to be able to like still find new songs and new artists that stir up those kind of feelings that I had when I was 12, 21, whatever it is. So my first pick is, and I wish I'd have done what Leigh did and had the actual albums, because then I could have looked really cool, because I could have had like, oh yeah, I've got vinyl of these albums. But I
insert
haven't
image here.
Yeah, I could have. I would have had to run down 3 flights of stairs and get them, and it would have looked quite obvious. It would have been like he went downstairs to get that. I would have been the David Brent of this part. But my first choice is a band called Of Monsters and Men, who are an Icelandic group who emerged about 10 years ago with a very kind of folksy traditionalist sound, very kind of anthemic, but also with a kind of very traditional sound. And what they do beautifully is they mix a male and female vocal. So sometimes it will be shared, sometimes it will be focused on one or the other. But they released an album a few years back called Fever Dream, which took that kind of folksy bon hom and added a new wave aggressiveness to it, and introducing more electronic instruments and a much more kind of punchy sound that kind of grabbed you in, and it wasn't as kind of ethereal and sedate as it had been in the past, although those songs still had drive and ambition. But it just went on a way of kind of just going, we can still be modern and contemporary, and we're not a traditionalist sounding, we're not stuck in this kind of folksy sound that everybody's kind of pigeonholed us into. And they had developed it over the kind of the course of the 4 albums that they've put out. But Fever Dream was just an evolution of their sound, which was like, this is brilliant. This is the same band and the same sound, but they've just taken it up to another level. And the way they intertwine the vocals and the sounds of a male and female voice, it's just beautiful, and constantly surprises me in how they can orchestrate a song and just using melodies and all the rest of it. Musically, it's just amazing. And they're just somebody that I've kind of thought you don't hear a lot of. People don't seem to kind of say or talk an awful lot about them as a band, but I've managed to see them live, and that's phenomenal. That was a show. The lead singer Nana was on stage in a kind of like catsuit covered in kind of like reflective, I don't know, sequins. It was brilliant, and they had the lighting and everything. She'd climb on top of a drum set and smash a drum of her own and stuff. It was phenomenal. It's all I want from music, something that just punches its hands into your chest and grabs you and drags you kicking and screaming into a state of ecstasy as you listen.
I think there's one track of that album that I do know, and like the opening riff of it is exactly what you're describing, that sort of punchiness. Yeah. And I can't remember what the song is actually called, but as soon as you showed that album cover, I heard that riff in my head.
The big hit off it was a song called Alligator, which was kind of the big song that everybody'd heard. But there's quite a few on there. There's a few songs. There's some that are kind of more Icelandic and stuff that are just fantastic. But yeah, I love them as a band, and I could have picked any of their albums, but that particular one, the most recent one, is great. I do love it. But my second pick, I'm gonna just, because Ryan's already said like I'm gonna pick it. I am gonna pick it. I've already mentioned it before. It's one of my favorite albums. Although I do love the fact that their latest album was titled "Beautiful People Will Ruin Your Life," which is entirely true. Avoid beautiful people as much as possible, folks. They're not good for your health. I'm gonna pick their second album, which was called The Modern Glitch, which I heard a bunch of songs from and was just completely blown away. I'd heard a few of their previous songs from their other their initial album, but this had got songs called Our Perfect Disease. There was a song called Tokyo, in brackets vampire and wolves, Jump into the Fog. Anti-D is like about somebody being somebody's antidepressant, and like both, you know, I loved it because it was all about like broken and damaged people and how we're all floating around this world in a way, and we're all interconnected. And you know, there was a song called 1996 as well. Obviously they're a few years younger than me, but just again, it's a 3-piece, guitars and drums, and again it's another band that just the lyrics and the music just reach into me and just go, yeah, come on. And lyrically they're brilliant, and the way that, you know, each song is a story, and a lot of it you can kind of recognize in a similar way to something like Scott Pilgrim still talk to me, even though I was 20 years older than those characters were at the time. It still talk to me about the inherentness of being young and the inherentness of all of these things that we do to kind of make our way through life, and their songs kind of wrap that up into that. And they use, you know, they're just such lyricists as well. It's, you know, they use some great language to do stuff. It's not kind of traditional, but and both those bands are just, you know, lyrically and musically, you know, extremely interesting. I'd recommend both of them to everybody. And the Wombats have got a new song out this week, which is brilliant because it starts off somewhere you don't expect it to go and ends magnificently, and you should all go and listen to it. It's called Method to the Madness, by the way.
Yes, that is showing up as their latest release on Spotify.
Yeah, it's great.
No,
let it start, and then when you get to the end, you'll be like, oh yeah.
That sounds a very interesting fix there, Keith. I suppose it's my turn now, isn't it?
It's your turn.
So, if you're a regular listener to the show and you've listened to previous ones where we recommended albums, you'll know my obsession with French electronica is kind of like well known. Where it's like any kind of French electronica music, I'm there, and I will listen. Like Yuxek, Justice, Air, Daft Punk, of course, anything like that. So what I'm going to pick actually is a slight twist on that, and you might have seen this previously. I don't know if you can see that properly. It's Ed Banger 15. So Ed Banger is a very well-known label for French electronica in France. It's where Justice is signed to. Mr. Oiseau signed there. Quite a few big names have been signed to Ed Banger. So for their 15th anniversary, they did a special orchestral version and remix of some of their greatest songs. And it is some of the finest music you can sit down for an hour and listen to. It's Orchestra Limolu, I think, is if I get the pronunciation right. So they took some of the songs and reworked them completely orchestrally. So you've got stuff like Tricycle Express, Fantasy by Your Side, Jack in the Box, and then the second half of the album is just pretty Justice remade in an orchestral style, which is fantastic for me. So like Stress, Alakazam, D-A-N-C-E, Waters of Nazareth, We Are Your Friends. So all like the big Justice hits, but with an orchestra. And it is mind-blowing the first time you listen to it.
I'm trying to imagine an orchestral version of Waters of Nazareth. So
it is fantastic.
I'm going to have to listen to that.
Yeah, because they do Genesis, Phantom, and Phantom Part 2. So Genesis is still, to me, the best opening track of any album ever, because it's just that orchestral wall that comes and slaps you in the face. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing. But it also, to my head, if I was doing a D&D campaign, you could pretty much use this entire album as backing for it. So like invading the big bad guy's castle, the big climactic fight scene. It's there. You can just use this album for the entirety of your campaign, and it'll work perfectly. It is the pinnacle of French electronica by an orchestra, and that's the only way I can describe it. If you haven't listened, go away now. We'll wait here. We have to sit here and wait. So Ed Banger 15 is one of my all-time recommendations.
I'm adding it to my list now.
Yeah. Second album choice is an album from the year before I was born. And it's from a Japanese jazz fusion group. So my Spotify Discover Weekly has been taking me to parts unknown over the last few months and the last year working from home. I've been having Spotify in the background and like going into like little TV tropes version of music, basically. Where just like going down the rabbit hole and seeing where it takes me. But I found this band called Cassiope, as in like Casio, as in like the guitar, and then PEA, as in the vegetable, so Cassiope. And they released an album, seventh album, I believe, back in 1982, which is called Mint Jams, which they took a live recording session, then remixed it in the studio, and it is known as their finest album. I shall find the picture as we speak. It's a very interesting album, and if you are an anime fan, it's pretty much this is the slice of life anime backing track album collection. You can imagine this being dropped in any kind of slice of life anime. So if you've ever, Ocean Waves, I Can Hear the Sea, which is one of my favourite Ghibli movies, which is one of their lesser known titles. I could imagine this being part of the soundtrack. There's some really standout tracks in there. Midnight Rendezvous is probably my favourite on there. It's very French, new wavy jazz kind of thing, and it's like the ultimate background album. It's one that you could see yourself in a cafe in Tokyo or on the beach somewhere in Okinawa, and just like having this on in the background whilst drinking a cocktail and watching Japanese life go by. It's a great little, just put it on and just chill for like the 40-minute runtime it runs for. It's a beautiful pearlescent gem of an album. Is the only way I can describe it. And like, it even reminds me of stuff like Outrun, like Splash Wave and that kind of music that you have in the background. So if you've ever like the Outrun soundtrack, go and have a listen to this. It's got that similar kind of vibe. So that's kind of my two choices, both pretty much reinterpretations of stuff I would normally listen to anyway. But hope you enjoy those. So what we'll do is put those as a list and tag them in on the article that goes up on the website, and then you can download and listen to it from there, and there'll be links to multiple places, usually Spotify, where you can go and pick those up from. If
we do our Mixcloud version of the show, we can always pop some tracks from these albums.
Yes, definitely. But definitely some great albums there. And just to recap, Leigh?
Pure Reason Revolution, The Dark Third, and Shinichi Osawa, The One.
Shanice?
It was the Front Bottoms, Talon of the Hawks, and Michael Cera Palin. I don't know how to explain it.
And Keith?
What now seems like the very old man choices of Monsters and Men, Fever Dream, and the Wombats, The Modern Glitch.
And for me, it was Ed Banger 15, various artists, and Cassiope and Mint Jams. So hopefully you'll have a listen to those, see how you get on.
Hello and welcome to the portion of the show where I talk about my last few games of the week. Aerial Knight's Never Yield is a stylish as hell runner game about a guy named Wally seeking out the mysteries of his past in a Japan-inspired world. It's fast-paced, looks gorgeous, and has a slick hip-hop soundtrack that just adds to the general cool of it all. Weaving Tides is a gorgeous puzzle game set in a woven land. You play as a character named Tass who rides carpet dragons through this world, using them to weave and stitch parts of the world together to solve puzzles, defeat foes, and untangle the mysteries of this strange place. It looks beautiful and unique, and for that it deserves some attention. And finally, Operation Tango is a game all about espionage with a really cool twist. Instead of just playing an operative sneaking around with AI-supported mission control, in this game, your friend is the mission control. One player plays a spy infiltrating secret places while the other player acts as their hacker, getting into systems and providing top-down information from floor plans and other data. It looks super stylish and should be a lot of fun. And is also free for PlayStation 5 players this month as well, although sadly the PS4 version is not part of this. To summarise, Aerial Knight's Never Yield is available on pretty much every platform going. Weaving Tides is available on PC and Switch, and Operation Tango is available on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. And now, back to the main show.
Leigh, it's been a while since we've delved into the world of video games, so we thought we'd have a gaming update. And as you are our gaming correspondent who's always hot on the pulse, do you want to give us an update on what's going on?
Yeah, so we are kind of in like the pre-E3 period where like all the little bits of news and rumors start emerging, and a lot of people this week have, a lot of publishers and stuff have done like little announcements this week, and They, of course, all had to be on Thursday because, that's the day when I write my roundup. So everything comes in last minute. But anyway, there's been like a few little bits and pieces. Like Dying Light 2 has got a release date, which I think is like its third release date after not having one. It's in December, though, so I have my doubts of whether or not they're actually going to meet that release date. Because usually if it's that far out, then it's never really a good thing.
So I don't remember the first one being that much of a hit.
I'm not sure. To be honest, like zombie games have kind of just fallen off with me in general because like there's so many of them, they all just kind of look the same eventually. All I know is this is the one with the parkour in it. That's literally all I know to distinguish it. But yeah, this is the second one. But I know that this has been going through like a lot of development issues because I know, like I said, it had a release date and then its release date went to TBA, and that's never a good sign when it has a definitive date that suddenly becomes, we don't know anymore. I think like a big chunk of the dev team got changed at some point as well. It's a bit messy at the moment, but it has a release date now. It's out in December, so we'll see what happens there. There was a Dragon Quest presentation, and what I love about this one is that you can tell the series isn't popular in the West because it was at 5 a.m. UK time. So they made absolutely no effort to make sure that people in America or the UK
don't insult the 5 Dragon Quest fans that listen to the show holding their slime plushies with art.
I'm not like it's not disparaging of the series. It is just a fact that like 80% of its sales are in Japan alone. So but they are apparently trying to appeal to the West with Dragon Quest XII, and in order to do that, they're doing the typical thing that Japanese developers think they need to do to appeal to the West. Let's go dark and edgy with it, which just doesn't work for Dragon Quest, from what I know of it. But but more interestingly, I'm not someone who's super into Dragon Quest, but I do like what they're doing with the Dragon Quest III remake they announced, because they're getting the team behind Octopath Traveler to do it. So it's going to be in that style. So it's very much 2D sprites with like pseudo 3D backgrounds, which that game looked amazing. So I think let's see more retro JRPGs remade in that style, because I think I want to see Final Fantasy VI in that style, quite frankly. But other than that, like, there wasn't really a lot coming out of that. There was also Sega did a Sonic Direct thing, which was mostly them talking about merchandise and how you can make all your doctors in 2 Point Hospital look like Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles.
Have they made a Sega pachinko machine by any chance?
They've inevitably got pachinko machines because they're an arcade company as well. But there were like 3 game announcements. So they're remastering Sonic Colors. So that's going to be released for everything instead of just the Wii. And they're doing a compilation of like all the original Sonic games in one package. And my favorite part of that announcement was the announcer guy said something along the lines of, "You get to play them like never before." And I'm just like, Sega, you release a Mega Drive collection every other week. You can't say that.
I was going to say, can't you get all the Sonic games for iOS and Android anyway now?
Name a console and you can get
Ouya.
All the original. You can probably get it on Ouya. But they also did announce the next Sonic game, sort of. It was like a 5-second trailer of Sonic running through a forest. And instead of a name, they just showed a weird Wingdings character. And then said 2022. And no one's entirely sure what's going on.
Are you sure that's not next Sonic movie coming out?
No, this is definitely the game. You
definitely
can tell the difference in the design. No, because the movie, we know that we know a bit more about the movie because we've got the picture of Tails and Knuckles on set, or rather the figures they're using as placeholders.
Why aren't we getting a Sonic movie game? It's been a long time since I've had a movie tie-in game. Well, and I kind of think Sonic could be the one.
Okay,
you walk around with a non-player character, James Masters.
You go and visit Olive Garden and just have like giant Olive Garden adverts.
You go and how many breadsticks can you break?
So you say this, but like the Colors remaster apparently is getting like movie-related content added to it. I don't know the specifics of it because it literally was just tacked onto the end of the trailer. It was just like pre-order now and get this movie content. And it's like, all right, bye, let's move on.
You can play as Jim Carrey.
Yes.
Yeah,
They replaced the rings with unlimited breadsticks.
But I think my favorite part of that whole announcement was Sega have announced the official Olympics title that they're doing for the Tokyo Olympics this year.
They already released a Tokyo's Mario and Sonic.
Not the Mario and Sonic ones. This is just the official Olympics game, not with Mario and Sonic. Although Sonic is in there as a mascot that your athlete can wear.
Yeah, I saw that. That was kind of horrific in the same way as the first design for the movie Sonic.
Imagine like a theme park costume of Sonic, and that's what your athlete is wearing. And all I could think during the entire trailer was, if this was a real athlete at the Olympics, that would be hell inside that suit.
All I can think of is the meme of Sonic, with like the really badly drawn Sonic, where the legs just spin round with "Got to go fast" written above it.
I still love that was in the movie. That they actually included that in the movie.
Why have I missed this then? Are we talking like 1930 sort of Easter egg, sort of Mr. Bunny sort of costumes, like really dauntingly horrifying, made in Russia sort of?
No. This is like, if you could see this being used as an official like mascot costume if there was a Sonic theme park. Like it's like it looks genuinely like well made, even though it is CGI in this case. But like, it's just bizarre because it's an Olympic game and it's the athlete wearing the thing while doing the 100 meters or the shot put in this full Sonic bodysuit.
I was going to say, this is like Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games. It's been out longer than the Olympics has been running in Tokyo.
My favorite thing about that was the person who made the joke online about how with the COVID pandemic, it's going to turn out that like Mario and Sonic at the 2020 Olympic Games is going to be the official Olympic Games. And then when the Olympics actually did get cancelled, they were like, "I was right. I told you." But yeah, apart from that, we then also had 15 minutes of gameplay for Horizon Forbidden West, which is the sequel to Horizon Zero Dawn, and it looks great. It looks so good. They've added so many like little improvements and things. Like there's actual melee combat now, rather than just you can hit things with a stick once and then you have to run away and fire some more arrows. Like there's actual melee combat now. And they've added a whole bunch of traversal options, and you can tell that they've been looking at Breath of the Wild a little bit, because the glider that they've added is very Breath of the Wild. And also there's like new raptor dinosaurs that look like they hunt intelligently in packs, so you can have like a Jurassic Park moment going on in gameplay where everyone just sneaks up behind you. And I hope that that's what that's showing, because if that is what they're doing with those raptors, that's going to be really, really interesting. So,
I mean, I look forward to playing that on PC in about 2028 then.
It's on.
Sony,
well, yeah.
Sony go with their current release schedule, yeah.
Yeah,
I've not played the original because of it being on PlayStation, but I do kind of feel like the original version of melee combat is more realistic. You hit something with a stick and then run away.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like that. That feels more genuine.
I can't imagine like you'd be able to use these moves against like the actual robot dinosaurs. It's more against other people when you encounter them, like the rival tribes and stuff. But
and do they have the bonk sound effect? Please tell me it's just like a stock bonk noise.
Sadly, no. Although with the first game now on PC, I'm sure someone could mod it in very easily.
That would be cool. Yeah. And do you want to talk about the Switch Pro rumor for the 6 millionth time?
I was about to go next. Yep. There's a rumor once again. There is going to be a new model of the Nintendo Switch, one that's supposedly going to be more powerful, and hopefully run things a little bit better than the current model can, because it is a little bit dated compared to other things on the market.
2016 it came out?
2017.
2017.
Yeah. But very early 2017 as well. So, but this rumor has been floating around for ages, and so I don't know how much stock I want to put in this. But this time around, it has kind of come from Bloomberg, and Jason Schreier who is the games editor at Bloomberg, is usually pretty good at knowing this sort of stuff. So there's a chance that this could be legitimate, but we will find out in the next couple of weeks because apparently it's going to be announced before E3.
So
Isn't it a 4K screen? It's a 4K screen with a larger 4K screen. That's essentially, isn't it, with Panasonic?
I think it's supposed to be 1080p on the console and it's at the 720p. But when you plug it into the TV, it goes up to 4K rather than the 1080p
I think something like
resolution that you're limited to at the minute.
Yeah, I think it's basically just a beefier version of the Switch, I think, and I hope they don't call it the new Nintendo Switch.
It feels
it's going to be it's the 3D Nintendo Switch. I think.
It feels very un-Nintendo for it just to be like, oh yeah, we're going to because everybody else is obsessed with graphics. We're going to make our stuff 4K because basically it doesn't need to. I don't think I've ever played a game on the Switch where I'm thinking, God, this would look better with twice as many pixels. So I wouldn't. I think it'd just be pandering to the fans rather than Nintendo doing it because it's going to make the system better.
I think my only concern with this is that I hope they don't do the new 3DS situation where some of the games will be exclusive to the new model. I'd rather that they went like the PlayStation Pro or the Xbox One X situation where it's like you have the better model, but you can run like a lower resolution version of it on the base model.
Yeah, or they could just introduce a new dock that upscales to 4K. And the main unit just stays the same, and you just buy a new dock.
I think it all depends on how the tech works, which don't ask me how it works.
I don't think there's because it's based on the NVIDIA Shield, which I had back in a long time ago. So it's kind of like the Shield controller that they had back in then, and everything's in the console. There's not much. I think it's just a USB-C to HDMI hub inside it, so there's nothing actually in the dock to do that conversion.
Well, if it's not going to make Animal Crossing any better, I don't need it.
It's Animal Crossing in 4K, Keith.
It'd be Animal Crossing, but they've CGI'd like real people's faces onto the.
God, that'd be horrifying, Keith.
Yeah, like, you got it.
Butters in 4K.
Yeah, it's like super deformed human beings that go wandering around Animal Crossing with real animals instead of fake ones. It's like, there's a real chicken living in my village. It's like, and a wolf, and the wolf's eating the chicken. That's what they're going to do. They're going to make it real life Animal Crossing. So if you have the wrong kind of if you have the wrong kind of villagers in your village, like the hippo will have killed everybody. The wolf would have eaten the chicken.
And that is the crossover that we need: Resident Evil times Animal Crossing.
Yeah.
Surely just the one human character will just eat all the other animals. Surely that's the end of the game, which is how we as a village.
Yeah. I do like the idea of resident crossing. That is it's quite cool. Basically, you end up slaughtering everybody because there's no way off the island that you can. Even when you swim, it's railed. There's a big net that stops you getting any further.
Yeah.
And it would be like living on the island of Dr. Moreau, wouldn't it? With like these half human, half animal hybrids wandering around the island, stalking you at night with nets and fishing rods.
Yeah.
There's a otter, I think, that pops up, and his name is Pascal, and he always wants your I think he wants your scallops. I can't remember correctly now, but if you're diving in the water, crops up, and he's like, hey, I'll give you a fun fact and a cool thing. Give me your scallop, and you're like, okay, log me. Here's the scallop. But imagine, I was just thinking then, imagine if he then got into the zombie form. So, you can either catch him in daytime where he's human or nighttime where he's zombies. Sometimes it would be when you start with brains and then.
I can imagine him being like the merchant from Resident Evil 4, though. It's just wearing a huge overcoat full of items.
Welcome, swimmer.
Just trading items for scallops.
Please take this ginormous mermaid drawer out of my pocket because it's weighing me down to my right here in the middle of the ocean. I can't understand how they do that. It's like you get a scallop and he gives you a bed. It's like, what am I doing with this? And it's like, how does that get to my house? I don't understand it.
Crossing logic, otherwise my house would look as good as it does now. So.
Does that mean Tom Nook would be the ultimate boss for Resident Evil X Animal Crossing?
Who would it be? The big ogre or the big fish in the lake?
I think he'd be like the little Napoleon from Resident Evil 4. It's his island, his kind of masterwork, and you're having to go around defeat all his traps.
He's going to be the Mr. X where he's constantly stalking you from time to time, and then you beat him at the end out in a super deformed form.
I mean, we all know Tommy and Timmy would be a double midway through the boss. That'd be the double partnership.
They sprout off him.
Like both on top of his shoulders with a big sword. Like one's just carrying the sword and the other one's just walking along.
And then Isabel would be the boss before the big boss, where you think it's all over with, you've defeated Isabel, and then Tom Nook just appears from behind.
And devours her in the first place.
KK Slider would be the nemesis.
Oh god! Yeah. So dedicated monks, then just the random villagers. Like I've got Stitches there, my beautiful Duck Weber with his little bowl cut hair, and he's like, no.
I mean, Cherry already is pretty much a zombie with that star pattern thing on her face.
That's such a detour from where Leigh was started out.
So that's what's going on.
We need to get this made. Yes. Could you imagine if that was the release title for the Switch Pro?
Yeah. Resident Crossing.
I mean, I do appreciate what one commenter on Eurogamer said that it should be called, which is, we've already got the Switch Lite. Let's call this the Switch Power. So you've got this power switch and the light switch.
That's clever, because I was thinking, wouldn't you just call it the heavy switch? Switch heavy.
One more thing in Matt's absence. Warwick's new esports centre. I'll quickly mention a bit, because I know your love of esports isn't as strong as Matt's in his absence. But they're just going to invest £275,000 to establish a new flexible esports centre located at the heart of the University of Warwick campus. And if you check the gaming update, which will be linked in the show's description, more information on there. But really good to see local investment in esports.
Mm-hmm.
No, thanks very much for that, Leigh, and apologies for the Resident Crossing detail. But now I just want fan art of Resident Crossing.
Yeah, me too, to be fair.
Yeah. Let's set up a subreddit. Thanks for joining us on the Geeky Brummie Podcast this week. Keith, where can we find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at hardluck_hotel and on Instagram without the underscore. But the Twitter is basically just me on a Wednesday retweeting me on Geeky Brummie, telling you all about the greatest and latest comics that are out.
Awesome. Leigh, where can we find your presence in the social media sphere?
You can find me on YouTube at Bob the Pet Ferret, where I make various different videos about video games, and you can find updates on that channel on Bob the Pet Ferret on Twitter, and you can find me just tweeting more generally as the Cheap Ferret.
Awesome. Shanice, where can we find you online?
You can only find me on the creative realm of Instagram with the handle idlecreep101. Good luck.
Cool. And you can find me at Ryan Parrish. You can find Brummie Gourmand for the foodie stuff. No MasterChef on at the minute. And I'm not doing Bake Off to professionals. It's too much hard work. But you can find us all, as you mentioned, at Geeky Brummie on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, geekybrummie.com, Geeky Brummie on YouTube. Thanks for joining us for this episode. Don't forget to do, I hate doing this, like, subscribe, share, comment, things below, engagement. You know, every YouTuber in the world tells you this stuff now, and every podcast in the world tells you this stuff. Just tell your friends about it so we can get some engagement and stuff. And thank you very much for listening or watching or however you consume our media. But as you mentioned, Twitter is kind of where we live, the headspace. But there's a Geeky Brummie website for Key's Comic Roundup, Leigh's Gaming Roundup, Matt's Esports updates, and more to come soon. But thank you very much, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.